Good afternoon, and thank you for listening to Talk Business with Audrey. I'm your girl, Audrey Bell Kearney, and I got a great guest today. He was the last passenger on Flight 1549 that crashed in the Hudson River back in 2009. So make sure to check out this episode of Talk Business with Audrey. You're going to enjoy the interview, and you're going to learn more about what happened on that very, very scary day. But before we go to the interview, I want to thank my sponsor for today, YouTube with Matthew Williams. 5109. Thank you, Matthew, for being a sponsor for this episode of Talk Business with Audrey, and thank you all for listening. Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Talk Business with Audrey. I'm your host, Audrey Bell Kearney, and today my guest is Mr. Dave Sanderson. His story is amazing. He's the author of Moments Matter. He was the last survivor off the plane, Flight 1549, and I remember when it happened. I was living in New Jersey then. I'm in Atlanta now, but I remember that. Everybody was like on the edge of their seats. Such an amazing story. So we're gonna jump in with Dave because he has somewhere to be, but I want him to share a little bit about his background and a little bit about that day when it looked like, hey, we don't know if we're gonna make it, and how that has changed his life and how he teaches people how to think in a split second and how to be a great leader. So, Dave, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me, Audrey. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So now give us a little background on who Dave is. I know there's a lot out there about you comparing to the crash of the plane, but who are you before that day?
Well, I was in sales for 30 years. I was at that time I was in technology sales with a company named Oracle. So I was traveling, frequently all over the country, marketing. I was primarily in the consumer packaged goods area. So I was in warehouses and distribution centers all the time, doing systems checks. And that's what happened that day. I was actually in a distribution center in Brooklyn, and we started our day at 8:00, and we got done about 10. So it was the end of a 3-day business trip, wanted to get home, and that's how I got on Flight 1549 that day that I wasn't supposed to be on.
So how did that day change your life? Because I remember seeing it on the news, and I was so close to New York at that time. So anything that happened in New York was like happening in New Jersey. Right. What was that day like? Like, tell me how your morning started, and then what time of the day did the crash actually happen?
So my day started about 5:00. We were in a distribution center doing our systems checks and doing what we did, and so about 10:00, I called a travel agent and worked with her, and she put me on Flight 1549. But there was nothing extraordinary about the day. It was 11 degrees and snowing that day. It was cold. I mean, it's New York in the middle of the winter. What do you expect? So when I got to the airport, I went to LaGuardia. Yeah, we were a little bit delayed because of the backups and things. But when I got on the plane, once again, nothing extraordinary. Got on. I went to seat 15A. That's 4 rows behind the left wing. I did exactly what I did every single time I got on the plane, like most people do. Just I, didn't pay attention to the flight attendants, put my head down, started reading a magazine. But about 60 plus seconds after we took off, I heard an explosion. And that's when you knew something happened. But when you fly as often as I fly, the plane lost an engine. I don't think anybody thought it was a big deal at that point, because what happened was you heard one explosion. You didn't hear a boom, boom on both sides of the plane. You heard boom. And I think everybody thought, well, just the other side of the plane's okay. We're going to go back to LaGuardia. But as you know, what turned out is both engines went out. And all of a sudden, he lost total power and thrust. And all of a sudden, at 3,000 feet, he had to make a decision on what he was going to do. And he made a decision that, fortunately for all of us, was the right decision at that point in time.
Man, I can't even imagine that. I fly too, and I never think about what happens if I come down. I never think like that. I always think like we're gonna get on, we're gonna get there. So I don't think most people think like that. Yep. But it happened. So at that time, was it a full flight of people?
Yeah, it was packed. There was 155 people, 150 passengers, 5 crew. So it was packed on the plane because it's a Thursday afternoon coming out of New York. People want to get home by Friday so they can start their weekend activities. So, I was lucky just to get on the plane. I was scheduled on the 5:00 flight and got on that flight earlier. It was a little delayed, so I left about 3:20, 3:25 area, and all this fun started happening about 3:31, 3:32. So about 5-6 minutes after we took off, and all the fun really started to happen on the plane.
I think about when I read your bio, you say you were the last person off the plane because you wanted to make sure everybody else got off. What were you thinking at that point? Because most people are like, I got to get out of here. Not that I'm trying to save, but that wasn't you. You were trying to save other people.
Candidly, I Audrey, it wasn't my intent. My game plan was get to the aisle, get up, and get out. That's exactly what I thought, and I think it was probably most people's thoughts. But when I got to the aisle, something happened to me, and I changed that day, but probably changed where I was probably going to happen the rest of my life. As my mom, who had passed away in 1997, kicked into my head. I heard something that she told me when I was a child that all of a sudden popped in my head. It says, if you do the right thing, God will take care of you. And to me, the right thing was you take care of other people first. Because I grew up playing sports and Boy Scouts and all the things that guys do, and you're hanging with the guys, and so you take care of everybody's around you. So that's why I waited in the back of the plane until we got everybody out. Then I started making my way out of the plane. But we were waist deep plus in the water at that point, and the bins have broken open. You got luggage floating in the water. It's dark in the back of the plane, and it's that was probably one of the more challenging times. Is just trying to figure out how I was going to get off the plane. But when I went out 10F, which is the exit door on the right, when I got to the door, it was an amazing sight because there was no room on that wing or the boat for me because they were already filled up. And that's why I was on the plane about 7-8 minutes waist deep in 36-degree water, holding on to the lifeboat to make sure it didn't float out into the river.
Wow, man, that's a story. Now, I can imagine that story has taken you places that you probably never thought you would go.
Yep.
How has that journey been after Flight 1549?
Well, that's exactly right, Audrey. I didn't think much of it. I mean, that night it was pretty hectic. The media was all over the place. You got to remember, this is New York, in the middle of the winter, plane crash. So I knew the media was pretty, strong there. But when I got back to Charlotte, I didn't expect anything, and all of a sudden the media was just all into it. So I started, I did a lot of media requests. I was on a lot of shows, but then, I started speaking, and the first time I spoke was at my church the following week for the men's breakfast, which usually means 50 old guys eating pancakes. But unfortunately, they advertised all over Charlotte, and they had about 500-600 people showed up, and they had to put it in the gym, and he ran out of pancakes, which was a thing for Methodists, of which I am, to have, is you got to have food. But that was my first speaking engagement, and I had some things happen that day to sort of open my eyes that I could impact people. And that's how it started really happening for me. And I started impacting people, but then I spoke for the Red Cross in Charlotte because she asked me. The Red Cross was there for me 3 times that day. And the CEO of the Red Cross in Charlotte had a fundraiser coming up, and she asked me if I would come and speak. And I said, anything. You help me that day, I'll help you. And all of a sudden they raised a lot of money, and my visibility got up to the point where I spoke at their national event in Washington, D.C., and spoke at the Supreme Court. And got to meet Justice Kennedy that night, who was a sponsor for the event. And all of a sudden they raised $6 million. And all of a sudden I knew that point, something that I could do could impact now a big, much more broader perspective of people. And that's why I've spoken now over 750 times around the world to see if I can help not only share the story, but the lessons and strategies, which is what I really do with business owners of that day. Because if you look at what happened on that plane, there's so many lessons from business, whether it's leadership or teamwork or persistence or awareness or how to manage your mind when all stuff's hitting the fan, that can be applied towards business. So I also do a lot of coaching and speaking for businesses.
So now before that the whole plane situation happened, you had been in sales for a while. Had you ever thought about doing anything differently outside of sales at that point, along the lines of what you're doing now?
I always had that dream, because one of the things I did as I was doing my sales is I was the head of security for a gentleman named Tony Robbins. And I got to travel with him around the world and see how he impacted people. And I was the guy behind the scenes making sure he could do what he needed to do, so he didn't have a lot of interference. So I knew that he could impact people and I could impact people, but I didn't have a story. I didn't have anything what am I going to say? And Tony always kept reinforcing me. It's like, when are you going to start doing this for yourself? You can't be working for somebody the rest of your life. You have to do it yourself to really have fulfillment in your life. So when this happened, Tony was the first person to call me in the hospital, and he was coaching me on how to really do this. So not only was I served him, but he served me at a time which was pretty frantic in my life with my family, my business, everything going on. But it gave me great direction. I have a debt of gratitude. That's one of the reasons I dedicated my book to Tony. Likewise.
Yeah, Tony is a great guy. I actually went to one of his Unleash the Power seminars and did the fire walk.
Did you walk on fire? You and Oprah got to walk on fire then.
Walked on fire, and it was so funny. There was a woman that I met at the event, and she was with me the whole time. Like, we met each other there, and we kind of stuck together the whole time. She got burned. She stopped in the middle of the fire. And so the next day she had blisters on her feet and
Yeah.
it was crazy. But yeah, that was an amazing experience.
She didn't pay attention to instruction then, because you don't stop, right? You face your fear and you go through it.
She stopped right in the middle. And so I said to her, what happened? And she said, I stopped. And I said, what? Not me. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to get burned.
Right.
So I ran off, but that was an amazing experience. So now tell me, for people, for entrepreneurs, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. My audience is pretty much all entrepreneurs and people thinking about being an entrepreneur. How can you take your life experiences, like in a situation like that? How can you take that? How do you think on your feet like that? Because that's really, you got to really be able to think really quick in a situation like that. How can someone apply that to their business?
So what happened that day is, there's, like I mentioned, there's so many lessons that came out of that day, because just think of the matter of just think of the captain, how he had to focus in on getting the outcome, but we all had to focus once the plane got down. So just equate that to a business or a small business. When you get to that point where you have a crisis coming up, whether it's a financial crisis, a sales crisis, an operational crisis, how do you focus in and really get everything out of your mind to do it? There are strategies on how to focus. There are strategies on how to manage your state. And that's one of the things I'm going to be teaching tomorrow in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, is the 3 things, as you probably learned when you went to the Tony seminar, about how to manage your body, how to manage your way you communicate, and how to manage your focus. So I teach these skills that happened on the plane that day, and they really translate to every little business, because every I got to tell everybody, or everybody's going to have that moment where they have their own, what I call their own personal plane crash, that moment of crisis where, it could go either way. And just like me, we could have gone, I could have been at the bottom of the Hudson River, or I could have done something different. That moment of crisis. And if somebody just made a different decision that day, this whole outcome may have been totally different. So it's a moment you make your decisions, well, all the consequences are going to come together. So I teach those and from the lessons in that day and translate that to business. And that's how this book came about. Is my former assistant, Vicky, said, you need to document this for your kids. If nothing else, document it for your kids. Because I told her the story about the lady who lives down the street, or used to live down the street, who was an Auschwitz survivor. And her sister was in Bergen-Belsen, and they survived the Holocaust. And I went down one day and I noticed all these pictures of them, and from back in the 40s when they were going through. I said, you need to document this. And they were so scared they never did want to go on camera and do it, or video, audio tape it. So Vicky told me you need to do it. So for 8 or 9 hours, I spent with her detailing every moment of that day. And all of a sudden we're like, these are lessons that people can actually use in their life. And that's how the book came together. And that's what I teach now, is those lessons and strategies.
So can you share one of those strategies with us? One that's going to help, let's say one that's going to help an entrepreneur who's really can't find their focus. They don't know what to, and I just had this conversation with somebody. She was telling me, she's like, and she's an attorney by trade, but she wants to do something in media. And so she's like, I just got to pick that focus. How do I find that focus? What strategies would you share with someone like her?
I would probably talk to her or somebody like that, because I'm actually talking to a group of sheriffs that's coming up, the new sheriffs coming into the state of North Carolina. And they're going through a lot of challenges in law enforcement right now. So one of the things I'm going to talk to them about tomorrow is the area of sensory acuity, being able to communicate. What modality do you communicate and other people communicate in? So there are really 5 ways, but 3 primary ways, whether it's visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, the way you feel. And if you understand how to do this and how to understand what modality somebody's in, all of a sudden you can communicate at a different level, and also you can take them to a different level. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. With my wife. My wife and I, we've been married now 28 years, been a great 28 years, but there's a times when there's probably things that everybody's got a little up and down. It's not always smooth. And we were going through one of those stages. And one of the things I was realizing is my wife, all of a sudden I realized that she was very auditory. She wanted to talk and talk. She just wants to get her stuff out and don't interrupt her. Just wants to talk. Well, I'm a visual person. Show me something and I got it. You don't need to tell me 45 minutes on how to do it. Give me because I got it. Also, we were butting heads constantly. And all of a sudden, once I realized that she's an auditory person, and all I had to do is sit there and listen and don't do anything and don't go visual on her, match her modality, all of a sudden our relationship went a whole different level. And I just started doing this in business. And all of a sudden I turned in clients into raving fans who would follow me any place. And all of a sudden, my company, Oracle, never could understand this strategy that I was using. But all of a sudden, I'm just sitting in these CEO suites, and no one could even get into the company. And well, how did I do that? It's because I used the sensory acuity. I understood how this person communicated, because executives of companies have limited time, like most of us have. They, unless you bring something to the table, they're not going to talk to you. But they all communicate in a special way. And if you can learn that way, and the way I used to learn that, this is the lesson I'll teach tomorrow, is through the executive assistant or the personal assistant. They can coach you on how this person communicates. Whether this person wants a fax, this one wants to talk to you, this one wants a video, or how are you going to approach them? And all of a sudden, I learned that strategy on how to approach by using the executive assistants and gaining rapport with them. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the C-suites. I'm having a different level of discussion than other people talking down in the down the warehouse. And all of a sudden, sales started happening to a rate that people could understand. And I always said, give me the hardest ones, because the ones that you guys can't get into, let me have a crack at them. And also, I start bringing new clients in the big companies. They're like, how are you doing this? But no one asked me the question, just asked me the strategy behind it. So I would coach her as sensory acuity. Understand the modalities. You got to understand modalities people live in, so you can either match it or mirror it to be able to get to the same way. And now you're walking down the same path instead of crossing paths.
You know, that's so funny, because I took a training probably about 5 years ago. There's a gentleman who wrote this book. It was more spiritual, but what he said was that everybody's different. Now, I had never heard that before. He said everybody learns different, everybody communicates differently. And so for me, I'm the type of person where just tell me what it is. I don't need a visual. Don't draw me out a picture. Just tell me what it is. So my husband and my daughter talks in pictures. Like, they like to tell stories. Yeah. Mine is just get to the point. Like, give me the meat of what I don't need everything else. Just tell me.
I'll figure it out, right? I'll figure it out. Right.
Right. So it was so funny. But when I learned that I have to sit still and I have to listen to them tell a story, and which would like really annoy me. It would get on my nerve. Like, okay, seriously, get to the point. You know, and I was like, okay, I'm an auditory learner. I learn by listening, and you got to get to the point. You don't draw out the story. But when you learn that kind of stuff, it really does help, because I learned to listen to my daughter, who's very long-winded, but she wants to tell a story. So does my husband, and that was really cool. You know, and that's another thing too. And I think about what you said in the school system. If teachers were taught that, they would have better success with the students as well, because I realize everybody learns differently.
I agree. And I'll give you a perfect example of what you just said. Is my son, who then was in second grade when this happened. He's a pretty visual guy, all right? And he'll talk, but he's visual. But after the plane crash, every child had a different thing they were going through. I mean, but he didn't say a word, maybe 20, 30 days. He didn't say anything to anybody. But all of a sudden, we started getting notes in from the teacher about him. He started to draw pictures during class. And pictures of planes going up and planes going down and people standing on a wing, and he was drawing it out. And she goes, your son's, drawing pictures in class. We can't have him drawing pictures in class. But what you just said is true. If she would have understood the modalities, that what he was going through, is he's a visual guy, he needs to get it out on paper and visualize it. She would have been able to probably build more rapport with him and teach him at a different level. And you're right, teachers teach at a common base level. You teach everybody the same way. Well, everybody, you're right, doesn't learn the same way. So once you can, teachers, I would coach them. When I do speak to teachers, I tell them, quickly identify how your student learns. So if you have to teach this person visually or auditorily or give them a little more kinesthetic love, then all of a sudden you're teaching people a different way. You can get more effective.
So let me ask you this. So people, let's go back to entrepreneurs for a minute. So I know one of your methods is to get to the executive assistant. Get to the executive assistant, get to learn more about that person. That way you know how to talk to them and approach that person. But what about the person who don't have an executive assistant and I want to get to that person? What am I doing? How am I get to that person? Am I meeting them at a meetup and building a relationship with them? How am I doing it?
There's a lot of ways to do it. You can third party it, whether it's through their banker or CPA, and that's how I did originally. And I third party. I would still probably do that on occasion. But what I did, an example, the client I was with, up in Brooklyn, they were tough. They never had interaction with Oracle at all. But I found out that one of their executives had just come on from one of my former clients, and I sent him a big wine basket. It says, "Congratulations! You don't owe me anything. I just want to say congratulations." And all of a sudden, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, thank you. When you're in Sarasota, give me a call." And all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the executive suite just because I sent a wine basket, cost $50. So he didn't have an executive assistant. So there's always ways to do it. You got to read, you got to do your research. That's why every day I do my Twitter. I check out all the things. Who do I know and what companies have something going on? I send them something, a note or basket or flowers if it's a female, and all of a sudden you'll get a response. They may tell you to go pound sand, but you'll get a response. And most times they won't. Most times they'll say thank you, and if you're in the area, please stop by. And all of a sudden the door's open.
I think people think with social media that stuff is like dead and gone. So you're telling me that it's still very relevant right now.
I do my research that way. That's exactly how I do my research.
Wow, cool. Now that's a good idea. I think about, everybody wants to do social media, shoot an email, but I've heard people say, listen, send a note to say hello, send a flower, send a gift. That's really cool. That's a great idea. So now, how has your sales experience, this experience help you with moving your books along? I know that, you're getting a lot of interviews because of your survivorship, but how has that helped you move your books along, build your business and up to where you are right now? Where you plan on going in the next 5 years? Where do you see Dave Sanderson in the next 5 years?
Well, thank you. So what I've done is when the book was launched, we launched it in New Jersey, over in Weehawken, New Jersey, right across the road. And I donated all those proceeds to Hospital Palisades. Maybe they were for me that day.
Oh, nice.
And I wanted somebody who could at least benefit from, whether it's $1,000, $15, whatever it was. I didn't even know the final amount. Someone needed help. So that's where we launched it. So we had some media, but that wasn't the real intent. But when I went to Canada, a couple of weeks ago, and we launched it, all of a sudden I did a book launch in Canada, but I also was on media all through the country, because what I found out is they hadn't talked to anybody around this. Mm-hmm. So it opened Canada up for me tremendously, and I love going to Canada. Very hospitable people. But the way we're really growing my business is we're sort of stepping back now, and I'm not only got the book now that's going out, and I that's something that I just hopefully people enjoy to read, and I love to be able to share my story with them. But it's opened up a podcast opportunity, and I'm now talking to some of the top podcasters in the country on strategies on how to do it. My video products will be coming out here in the May-June timeframe. We're finishing that up in the next couple of months, so people can take my book information and they'll be able to hear me on a podcast. And by the way, they'll be able to see it on a video. So now you hit all modalities: audio, visual, kinesthetic. You hit it all. So I'm walking my talk and being congruent. But all this, the movie's coming out in September called Sully that I'm really excited about. I hope, I was invited to shoot a few scenes, and we'll see if they make the movie. But the next 5 years, I really want to take this, not only through the United States and Canada, but all over the world. I've now going into Latin America and South America this year, and this story is not really about a plane crash; it's about the message of hope, and with the strategies behind that. So. I just hope to take this at a different level. Bill, I'm taking a few clients on for coaching. I'm not taking a lot because I don't have a lot of time, but I want to give them that special experience of working with somebody who's been around somebody like a Tony Robbins, and being able to, how does somebody who goes to a Tony Robbins event, most people don't do anything with it. Well, I do something with it. How do you take that and transform that and do something with it and get the outcomes that he wants you to get? So that's what I do with coaching. So that's where I think I'll be in the next 5 years. And by that time, we'll see if we'll get a big RV, just travel across the country and say, you know what, we'll figure it out.
You stop down in Georgia now. If you get an RV and you're on the road, you stop in Georgia, and we'll bring the cameras and we'll shoot you again right there in Georgia.
I'll be in Atlanta, actually. I'm talking to somebody I'll be in Atlanta in June. So hopefully we'll be able to do that in June.
Okay, well, let me know, because I'll definitely try to make that. It's my daughter's birthday, my niece's prom and graduation, but in between that time, if I'm in the home, I'll come out, and I'll definitely
let you know. That'd be tremendous. I'd love to have you there as my guest.
No problem. So we are out of time, but I want to thank you so very much. Can you tell people how to reach out to you for coaching, how to get the book, how to bring you on as a speaker or a guest? How can they reach you?
Well, thank you very much. So the best way is my website, davesandersonspeaks.com. I got everything set up on that. I interact a lot of social media. You probably hear my background on Facebook. Dave Sanderson Speaks on, especially on LinkedIn. Dave Sanderson, a lot on LinkedIn, and Twitter, Dave Sanderson, and that's the best ways. But if you reach out to me, you will get to me. I don't have anybody. I don't have anybody that blocks between anybody. I talk to everybody. I personalize everything that I do because I want to make sure it's a personal experience. So thank you very much, and thank you so much for having me on today.
You're very, very welcome. And don't forget, when you come to the Atlanta area, just let me know. And if I'm in town, I'll definitely come out to support.
We'll do it. You have a great day. Thank you so much for having me.
Do the same thing. Hey, listen, wrapping it up, Talk Business with Audrey. My guest today was Mr. Dave Sanderson. Make sure you go check him out, DaveSandersonSpeak.com. He is an amazing guy, got an amazing story, and some really great ways to help you grow your business. And until next time, everybody, make it a great day. Thanks again, Dave. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.